He flipped me around and threw me on the floor.
I'm not giving you permission to put that. Put your hands on me. Put your hands on me. I didn't put my hands on you.
He reached up and full hand backhanded me.
And every time I moved my face,
Please, sir, I was begging you.
he would hit me with the opposite hand.
He threw her on the floor.
I put my hands behind my back and he was still hitting me.
I couldn't breathe. It was like...
Tonight we bring you a special 13 Investigates report on accusations of excessive force within the Belvidere Police Department. Public records show since 2001, the police department's been named in at least 12 lawsuits for police misconduct. It's paid tens of thousands of dollars to settle many of those claims. And 2 officers who combined are named in half of those lawsuits are still on the force today.
Step out of the car. Get out of the car.
This driver was pulled over for a burnt-out license plate light. He ended up charged with a felony because this officer got hurt during the arrest. Court records show that felony charge was dropped, and the man arrested ended up with a $10,000 settlement from Belvidere Police. It wasn't the first time Belvidere Police were accused of using excessive force and misconduct, and it wouldn't be the last.
I can't breathe, sir.
These are the pleas of Taylor Anguiano.
Please, I'm begging you.
Anguiano was gasping for air, begging for help for at least 10 minutes. That's when the video ends. 5 hours later, Anguiano ended up not in a jail cell, but in a hospital bed.
I woke up a couple days later. I remember the nurse told me that I had 12 lumps on my head. I had 2 black eyes. I had scratches, hematoma, contusions. I had fractured ribs.
That was 2 years ago. Today, Anguiano is behind bars at Stateville Correctional Center, convicted of aggravated battery of a senior citizen and a peace officer, crimes he says he didn't commit. Instead, Anguiano says he's the victim of excessive force by Belvidere Police.
He grabbed his pepper spray and he put his knee right here on my face onto the grass and held my mouth open and sprayed the pepper spray down my throat.
Anguiano says the officers repeatedly punched him. The state's attorney's office says Anguiano was the aggressor, macing 2 officers and punching one in the face. They also said you punched an officer, too. Did you do that?
No, I was already handcuffed, so I was really helpless, you know.
The city of Belvidere gave 13 Investigates dash cam videos from the squad cars on scene that day. None of them capture what happened during the arrest. But Anguiano is not alone in his claims of excessive force at the hands of Belvidere Police.
I put my hands behind my back and he was still hitting me.
I had a bruise here from him throwing me.
One of them had my arm this way, one of them had my arm this way, and they're still like moving him around, yelling, "Stop resisting."
I don't know where resisting came into play. I think it was just to add another charge because he could.
These 4 people never filed formal complaints, but they tell 13 Investigates their arrest with Belvidere Police left them with cracked ribs, bruised faces, black eyes, and charges they didn't deserve. And it's not just accusations of excessive force they have in common.
Ryan Davenport.
Parker
Davenport.
They say the ones who used that force were either Officer Ryan Davenport or Officer Brandon Parker. So 13 Investigates took a closer look at these officers, starting with their arrest history over the last 2 years. Out of the 30 patrol officers on the force, Davenport and Parker made fewer arrests than half of them, but they still lead the department with resisting arrest charges. Combined, the 2 officers make up 23% of all resisting charges for the entire department. We reached out to Parker and Davenport for comment, as well as the Chief of Police, Shane Woody, and Belvidere Mayor, Mike Chamberlain. The city attorney denied our request, saying the police department treats all complaints and allegations seriously, and that Belvidere Police Department has a very strong culture of positive service to the community. Went on to say appropriate discipline of officers is given when warranted. But as 13 Investigates found out, rarely are officers with Belvidere Police ever disciplined after a complaint is made. Take a look at these records of complaints. Belvidere Police say they received 7 from 2014 to 2018. That's as far back in the records the department would give us. 3 of those complaints involved Parker or Davenport. One woman says Parker threatened to kill her son, report her to immigration, and shouted a racist expletive. A man says Davenport maced him while he was on the ground after he was the victim of an assault. And at least 3 other officers were accused of beating people's heads into the floor, unjustly macing people, and injuring them to the point of hospitalization. The person who investigates these complaints? The Belvidere Chief of Police. Since becoming chief in 2018, Chief Woody has cleared every officer of wrongdoing in complaints filed against them. In fact, there's no record of any officer being punished following any of these formal complaints, except for one.
I am telling you, I'm not giving you permission to put that picture on Facebook. Put your hands on me. Put your hands on me. I didn't put my hands on you. Put your hands on me. Have a wonderful night. Okay?
Does not end here. Coming up after the break, we air part 2 of our report on allegations of misconduct at the Belvidere Police Department.
Our 13 Investigates special report into allegations of excessive force and misconduct at the Belvidere Police Department continues.
Now, before the break, we showed you video and told you the stories of 5 people who claim they are victims of excessive force by 2 officers, Brandon Parker and Ryan Davenport. Tonight, we continue our investigation with more accusations of abuse of power and the lawsuits that have totaled tens of thousands of dollars.
I am telling you, I'm not giving you permission to put that picture on Facebook. Put your hands on me. Put your hands on me. I didn't put my hands on you. Put your hands.
I had my camera rolling, and again, he started threatening me.
This man, who we'll call Tom, asked we hide his identity. Tom says this officer started yelling at him after taking this picture of Belvidere squad cars parked outside a local Starbucks. That's when Tom grabbed his phone and started recording.
He was telling me that if I put the pictures or anything that I took on Facebook, he was coming after me.
Jan, home right now. Up on Facebook. I'm going to call Jan right now. I'm going to come after you. You come after me. You're going to come after me.
He reached up and full hand backhanded me to where not only did he hit my hand in the camera, but he hit me in the face as well.
This officer is Ryan Davenport, the same man these 3 people accuse of misconduct. Tom filed a complaint with then Chief Jan Noble, and Officer Davenport was suspended without pay for 24 hours for conduct unbecoming, saying police members should control their temper. He was also ordered to undergo social conflict control training. But Tom says after he filed that report, Chief Woody, who at the time was deputy chief of the department, called him down to the station.
He put a paper in front of me, and it was a paper that, for me to sign, that stated that I was agreeing not to press charges against the officer. And I felt at the time that if I didn't do that, that it wasn't going to be investigated right and nothing was going to come from it.
Tom says he signed this waiver of criminal prosecution form and left the department with a target on his back.
I mean, I was worried. I mean, I thought there's going to be some type of retaliation here.
And you believe they were out to get you because you filed that complaint?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Tom alleges law enforcement in Belvidere and Boone County started harassing his family and following them.
And enough was enough, and we picked up and left. I mean, literally picked up and left and moved out of state because of not wanting to deal with that harassment anymore.
There are some officers that are repeat offenders that we are currently looking into.
Civil rights attorney Louis Meyer says he's more than familiar with Belvidere Police.
When I called you about an issue with Belvidere Police, you did not sound surprised.
I didn't hesitate because unfortunately we've received numerous calls for police misconduct cases involving the Belvidere Police Department.
Meyer says his firm's handled at least 7 cases out of Belvidere in the last 3 years, all for police misconduct.
And is that a lot?
For a department that size, that's a lot.
And that's not all. 13 Investigates found records of more than a dozen lawsuits from 2001 to 2019. Davenport is named in at least 1, Parker at least 5. Remember this traffic stop? Get out of the car! The one that resulted in a $10,000 settlement? The officer in this video is Brandon Parker. City records show a total of $73,000 have been paid out to people in settlements involving Belvidere police. The settlements Parker's been named in total nearly $60,000. And some of the people paid signed agreements not to publicly talk about the incident or the officers.
It protects the officers because it's not in the public, so people don't raise an uproar about it.
It's why Meyer can't publicly tell us which officers his clients have accused of misconduct. The people we interviewed say they're done staying silent, and they want Belvidere police to hold officers accountable.
Somebody needs to take a stand, and it needs to stop now.
You're not a stranger to the criminal justice system. You've been arrested before. So when this story airs and when people hear your story, why should they believe you?
Because it's the truth.
Just yesterday, another lawsuit was filed against Officer Parker, accusing him of excessive force. Our investigation stemmed from another investigation we did almost 2 years ago when a man named Paul Ainley ended up in the hospital after what he called an unlawful arrest by Belvidere police. Ainley is fighting his charges and suing the department. His trial date is set for March 2nd. It's important to note the city of Belvidere told us they received no complaints against officers for the entire year of 2019.
5 days after a 13 investigates a special report on allegations of excessive force and misconduct at the Belvidere Police Department, dozens of people from Belvidere filled City Hall tonight to make their voices heard. 13 News reporter Kristin Crowley is live from Belvidere tonight where that meeting just wrapped up. Kristin?
Well, good evening, James, and that's right. The people who came out here tonight say they were here in direct response to our investigation that we aired last Wednesday on our air. A group of about 24 people came wearing blue in support of police officers, while another group came in support of people they say have been the subjects of abuse by Belvidere police officers. The two groups got into heated debates outside council chambers and were moved to the vestibule area so as not to disturb the meeting that was ongoing. That meeting started at 6 o'clock. These debates and discussions went on for 3 hours, just wrapping up here on 9:30. About an hour prior to that, Chief of Police Shane Woody held an impromptu talk with residents to hear their concerns. We did interview multiple people here tonight, but because this is such a hot button topic and because this meeting just ended, we are taking the time to put all of those interviews together and present a full report. So we are going to do that and comb through everything we heard here tonight in this 3.5 hour long meeting. I'll have more on that for you tomorrow night on 13 News. For now, James, back to you.
The problem doesn't get fixed if nothing gets addressed.
Nothing's going to happen from this.
You're right. We're getting our voices out.
An investigation by 13 WREX sparked this heated debate at Belvidere City Hall last night. That investigation was about alleged misconduct at the Belvidere Police Department.
And dozens of people showed up to City Council, some to voice their support for police, others to voice their concerns about them. Tonight we hear from both sides and for the first time hear from the Chief of Police and the Mayor about the allegations against the force. It's a story you'll see only on 13 News. It was standing room only at City Hall Monday night. People dressed in blue as a show of solidarity with the police force filled nearly every seat, while another group filled the hallway to share their stories of alleged abuse at the hands of police.
The physical abuse, the verbal abuse, all because of the way I look.
I have a family here. I have a daughter here. I just would like peace of mind that no, the police are there to protect and serve me, not harass, not make me feel scared.
We need to join together, and it makes me sad because Belvidere is a great town, and for you guys to feel hate or sadness or broken, it breaks my heart.
With no plan on the agenda to talk about the police department, both sides came to a head outside council chambers.
I feel extremely safe in Belvidere.
And for hours, they debated.
You guys are going around spreading this false narrative saying,
spreading a false narrative
oh my
of
God.
saying
So they serve, but they also protect. Absolutely they do.
Until Chief of Police Shane Woody stepped in.
You wouldn't still be here if you didn't want to still have this conversation. Let's go back and let's have open dialogue.
While more than a dozen people left by this time, a large group still filled city council chambers.
When an officer asks you to comply, comply.
It is legal.
what's happening, and we do have rights.
And for the first time on camera, Chief Woody and Mayor Mike Chamberlain addressed the 13 Investigates report, with Mayor Chamberlain saying he completely supports the police department.
We don't beat up people. We subdue them and take them to the ground so we can control the situation.
People believe they have rights to resist, to not comply, when that truly just is not the case, and that makes it more dangerous for you, for us.
Chief Woody said he's committed to serving the people of Belvidere and listening to those who have problems with the force.
I'm not the type of person that shies away from the knowledge that we may not be doing everything exactly the way we want to. And that's how you grow. That's how you get better.
The nearly 4-hour night ended civilly, even with a few hugs between both groups. But a solution to the issue that divided this group in the first place is still unknown. And the question remains over what the next step is.
An alderwoman says she was disturbed by what she saw in our 13 Investigate special report, and she wants the matter added to the city council agenda next week. That agenda is expected to be made available to the public Thursday evening.
And we want to remind you, we have our investigation along with the full dashcam videos available on WREX.com. Representative Joseph Zanowski, whose district includes Belvidere, provided 13 News with this statement about our investigation, saying in part, quote, "While I am not privy to the specifics of the investigation or discipline, the WREX report is deeply concerning and raises challenging questions. All departments and their leadership need to constantly seek to improve, weed out bad actors, be more transparent, and allow for more public involvement and feedback." Zanowski also said he was encouraged by last night's communication by the city with residents. New at 10 tonight, after a 13 Investigates special report on allegations of misconduct and excessive force within the Belvidere Police Department, City Council added a police discussion to its agenda and for the first time heard feedback from the public.
So it takes something like this to happen for everybody to be on the same page and really raise the awareness that something needs to be done.
Our officers are on attack these days. They have to watch over their shoulders, and every single movement can be a movement of aggression.
It was standing room only for the second week in a row at Belvidere City Hall. 6 people, including 1 alderman, spoke to the crowded room either to give their support to police or call for change. Alderman Marcia Freeman, who asked the issue be added to the agenda today, was the only alderman to go on the record, and tonight she called for an outside investigation.
As alarmed as I was by the newscast, I am in some form grateful that this has come to light. If there is a problem, and by all outward appearances there is, then it needs to be comprehensively addressed by the leaders within our community. It is my recommendation that we commission an unbiased outside entity to continue the investigation and get to the bottom of the allegations.
Alderman Freeman also said at the very least she wants to look at equipping officers with body cameras. Chief of Police Shane Woody addressed the crowded room ahead of the public discussion, saying he does not agree with the 13 Investigates report, but wants to listen to people's concerns.
Resisting arrest statistics are not typically a statistic that the police department tracks, because there isn't anything against department policy or state law to have more types of arrests than any other officer, but now that I'm aware of these statistics, it's something we'll monitor going forward.
He is speaking about the statistics of resisting arrest and why some officers had higher rates than others on his force. Chief Woody went on to say his officers strive to be professional and get better every day. We have asked the chief for a formal sit-down interview. He says he'll review the request with city attorneys.